Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. As you can see, I'm not in the studio, we're still on the road, we're in New York, Renzo Gracie Academy. This is the Union Square branch. There's also her headquarters, which I'll be recording the main event at later today. These War Rooms are brought to you by Renzo Gracie Academy. We've had such a fantastic time training, preparing Veronica for her next fight here. It's not our first time here, it certainly won't be our last. The coaching, the knowledge, the way that it's coached, the training partners. I mean, I honestly can't say enough good things about this, as well as Professor Renzo Gracie being one of the best people that you'll meet in or out of martial arts. He's an absolutely fantastic human being, and we're very thankful for being welcomed into the gym and coached and helped the way that we have been. So this week's War Rooms are brought to you by Renzo Gracie Academies. Make sure you check them out. If you're in New York, or if you're planning on coming to New York, if you love martial arts and you want somewhere to go and train, come to New York. Check out the Blue Basement. Check out Union Square. Some of these coaches, Mike Jaramillo, Eric Sherman, Sean Santella, incredible knowledge, incredible. We couldn't be more thankful of them and the help they've given us for these training camps. Okay, so this War Room is about this weekend's UFC co-main event. Jose Aldo back in competition. UFC Brazil would be weird for a show in Rio to not have Jose Aldo on it, but I do feel like, we are, obviously he's retired once, we are very much coming to the end of Aldo's career. This 10 years ago would be a very different breakdown to how it is now. Aldo for me is one of my heroes in mixed martial arts. I was fortunate enough to train with him in Rio a few years ago, and just an incredibly likable guy, a very talented martial artist, a very, very skilled fighter. And as you can see, coming out of retirement to compete for the Brazilian fans, that will to compete has not died. Unfortunately, though, as we do get older, our ability to compete physiologically does change. And I do feel like this obviously is not going to be the best version of Jose Aldo that we've ever seen. It doesn't mean that he can't win this fight, because Jose Aldo can beat anybody on any given day, especially if the fight starts out right and his game plan is sticking. And that's really going to be a big question around this fight. So as far as height and reach, there's not a great deal of difference in the two. Jonathan Martinez has got an inch on Jose Aldo. They've both got a 70-inch reach. The experience, of course, on Jose Aldo's side is quite considerable, although Martinez has had a lot of fights, and that's a lot of fights just taking into account his MMA record. As I said, I've been a big fan of Aldo for a long time. I've learned a lot from watching Aldo over the years. Jonathan Martinez stuck out in my mind. When he was coming to make his UFC debut, I interviewed him ahead of a couple of his earlier fights, and he was very, very... he's changed quite a bit. He's grown in confidence, which is great to see. But there was certainly something very unassuming about him when he first stepped onto the UFC roster. He was quiet in the fighter meetings. He didn't really want to make eye contact. He was quite a shy young man. But then when you start talking to him about his love for fighting, and that's what it is, he loves fighting. He learns the technical skills to bolster his ability to be good at fighting. He loves fighting. He was getting into fights constantly when he was growing up. So although Aldo's got more experience in mixed martial arts, Jonathan Martinez is a lifelong fighter, even if he doesn't have it on his record to prove it. And I do feel like with his confidence, his skill set has grown. There are certain things that he does now very well that he wasn't doing earlier on in his career. We still see that toughness, but we see that toughness because sometimes he does take a few shots, and it does take him a minute to get going. Now, this over 5 rounds would be a different fight again. Aldo over 3 rounds can push a pace, he can work, he's very well conditioned, he's very twitchy. Over 5 rounds, Aldo was always a 4-round fighter. I can go back to watch the majority of his title defenses, and I can tell you the round that he takes off in that fight. Often he would win 4 of the rounds, or he would win 3 of the rounds and take the 4th off and then come back and win the 5th. Or he would win the first 2 and then kind of be lazy in the 3rd and then pick it up in the 4th and 5th. All these are veteran decisions that Aldo was making for himself, given the fact that, he was a high output fighter. He had an incredible ability to scramble. His takedown defense is fantastic. He's very, very quick off the mark. He hits very hard. Obviously, his low kicks are devastating. But all of those attributes and skills, they require him to be energetic, and being energetic at that kind of pace with speed for 25 minutes is very difficult, especially given the fact that even at featherweight, Aldo was cutting a fair amount. So he's a slightly different fighter now. I feel like he's more paced. I feel like he's better at applying his martial arts without overextending himself in a cardiovascular sense. Like he learned these lessons as a champion defending his belt, and as he's moved back into 3-round fights, it just changes the dynamic of his attack. He can be a little bit sharper and a bit more aggressive. As far as their records go, so Jonathan Martinez is 19 wins and 4 losses. 9 of his 19 wins come by knockout. He also has 2 arm bars on his record. I don't know if we're going to see much grappling. I don't necessarily think he wants to grapple too much. Sometimes we find him grappling if he's been in a vulnerable position, like he's level changed, he's held people against the fence a few times. It's going to be very difficult for him to get Aldo to the floor. Even this version of Aldo, who's not quite as agile and quick as he used to be. Aldo's takedown offense is incredible. His ability to scramble is incredible. You go back to the Chad Mendes fights. His ability to break the grip and strike on the clinch break was phenomenal. In the rematch, his ability to hip heist and bump himself up off the canvas, so he was never settled to the floor. And again, his reaction times. We've seen really, really good takedown defense from him. Where, was it Rob Font, where he sprawled and circled, started passing his guards straight away. He's very good at holding top position once he's there. But you've always got the feeling from Aldo, and this is, I feel like, a similar decision that Gaethje made early in his career. He knew he had wrestling, but he also knew that wrestling would require a lot of energy to have the same success as he would have with a few punches. Aldo's striking has always been the most prominent part of his game, but we can't underestimate his ability to wrestle and grapple. It's more of a decision based on his cardiovascular output, which is why he prefers to strike, in my opinion. Obviously, I think he does like to strike as well, but it's so much easier to do work quickly with one strike than it is to go through a chain of takedowns and to submissions or even positions to strike. Aldo knows where those moments of unnecessary energy expense are. And given the fact that Jonathan Martinez is not necessarily a very quick starter, it does allow Aldo to come out and set the pace in this fight. So 19-4 for Martinez, 9 knockouts, 2 arm bars. On Aldo's side, 31-8 with 17 knockouts and 1 triangle way back in the day. So again, I'm not expecting submission attempts from Aldo. I'm expecting position and ground and pound if it does hit the floor. When it comes to the striking range, so Martinez is predominantly a southpaw, Aldo's predominantly orthodox. They've both got a very, very good low kick game, but low kicks do tend to be nullified to an extent when you're fighting someone of an open stance. So if I'm Aldo and I'm fighting in an orthodox stance, so my left hand's forward, and I'm fighting Martinez whose right hand is forward, the only power low kick I have really off my back leg, a power kick off the lead leg is difficult in open stances. It's dangerous to throw because you can get knocked off balance with an easy lead hand. You have to think about the angle more of the lead leg attack, whether you go into the closed side or to the open side. The inside low kick is difficult as well because both of these guys have got shin blocks. Like, you know for sure Aldo's got conditioned shins. So if he starts throwing kicks, if Martinez starts throwing inside kicks to Aldo, Aldo's going to check them and counter. And he's going to check and counter with a low kick. If Martinez starts getting hit with low kicks, he has good counters as well, but he's also got very good counter punches. So the low kick game is going to be an interesting one. I don't know who's going to take the lead, but given the fact that both of these guys have got such success with their low kicks, I do feel like at least one of them is going to take the initiative and try and figure out how this is going to work. The benefit for Martinez is that he's got the youth and the hip flexibility and dexterity to be able to work higher than the waist. I don't know for sure, but in recent years when I've seen Aldo throwing kicks that have gone above the waist, they don't look as comfortable as they used to. So I don't know whether Aldo's going to be somewhat limited in his kicking ability above the waist. And this is really where Martinez, for my money, can cause a lot of problems for Aldo. Because, again, Aldo, at this point in his career, like, you're a little bit more brittle than you used to be. And Jonathan Martinez is going to hammer those body kicks into the midsection. Like, we saw him doing it against Cub Swanson. We saw him hammering those kicks into the midsection. We saw him do that damage to the inside knee of Cub Swanson as well with the low kicks. Like, definitely you can use that against Aldo. but I also would expect Aldo to be far more sharper in his defense. Like, if you think Cub Swanson's style, for me, I always put Cub Swanson and Eddie Wineland in the same category of a fighter archetype. If we want to move into a Carl Jung kind of direction, the fighter archetype of Cub Swanson and Eddie Wineland is that of a gunslinger, right? The hands are down by their waist. They know they're quick off the mark, but they require a wider stance, a lower, wider stance to be able to move in and out of range at that kind of speed and hit with that kind of power. So there was more vulnerability in Cub Swanson's style. Aldo is he's very compact, and the other thing that you'll watch, there was actually on UFC's YouTube yesterday, there was basically like an Aldo afternoon going on where they were showing all of his fights. Even when you go back to watch him fighting Alejandro Nogueira in WEC, like, watch the way that he's twitchy. His opponents are always on the back foot because they feel like something's always going to happen, and that's what Aldo does with his hands. There's always this movement where you're expecting something to happen, and this kind of twitchiness puts people on the back foot. Martinez is quite relaxed, but he is very quick off the mark with that body kick. My question is, the twitchiness and the footwork of Aldo, does that shut Martinez down in the early rounds? Like, you remember the activity that we saw out of Said Nurmagomedov when he fought Martinez. Martinez struggled for the first couple of minutes of that fight. He was getting caught with kicks. He was getting caught with counter punches. Nurmagomedov was trying to spin. There was a variety of things being thrown at Martinez, which required him to kind of maintain his composure, but also show a little bit of his toughness as well, because he did have to work through a few things. Now, the one that takes the initiative on the kicking may potentially be the one that wins the fight. I feel like Martinez has got more options, given the fact that he's going to be able to throw body kicks and head kicks far easier than Aldo is going to be able to. Martinez is also using his left leg, which is his power side. You'll see him use his left knee, his left elbow, his left kick. He's very, very left side dominant. So if he starts firing those kicks into that midsection of Aldo, and Aldo's taking him on the forearm or taking him on the upper arm, there is a tendency that he could do damage to the forearm. He could damage the shoulder, and if nothing else, it might start softening Aldo up to the midsection, so his hand starts coming down and allows that kick to creep over the top. These are all things that Aldo's going to have to be really cautious of, and also considerate with his footwork, because yes, Southpaw v Orthodox. I know we're always told as Orthodox fighters to move away from the power side of a Southpaw, but a good striker will tell you that's not always necessarily the right thing to do. A lot of good Southpaw strikers move towards the power side of an Orthodox fighter because they know what they're dealing with. Aldo can play that game. It's a bit more dangerous when it comes to kicking because, of course, you're moving onto a much more powerful limb. But I do feel like Aldo can shut down that body kick by moving into it and checking it and smothering it, and then moving away from it and sniping with his lead hand. The technical ability of Aldo, as well as the counter punching, like we saw against Moicano, where he's waiting for his opponent to go first. And one other thing I will say as well is Martinez utilizing shots that come around the sides is going to be useful. Hooks and body kicks are going to be really useful, given the fact that Aldo is very good at getting his head off the center line with straight punches. Like, you'll see Aldo standing here, and as a straight punch comes, he's either slipping his head off here, allowing it to go into this pocket, or he's slipping his head here, allowing it to go into this pocket. And off those things, he's always got counters. He's very good at splitting with his cross. He's very good at sweeping over with his hook. And I do expect his cross to be a very prominent punch in this fight. We saw him nail Rob Font with it, and we saw him hurt Rob Font with it. He's going to be far more usable against a southpaw fighter, especially if he's moving towards that lead foot. He's got that cross. He's got that rear kick. Very, very useful techniques for Aldo to be using in this fight. But twitchy hands and counter punching footwork is going to be a big key, because Jonathan Martinez, now he's like, last couple of fights he's had this level of confidence. You can see he'll come in and he'll fist bump the announcer and stuff. He wasn't doing those kind of things before. It's like he's realized his potential now, and now he's got an opportunity to fight someone like Jose Aldo. He's got someone in front of him that, you know, a scary dude, an inspiring fighter that was probably someone that Jonathan Martinez watched and enjoyed while he was growing up. But at the same time, Aldo is not the fighter that he used to be, and this is an opportunity for Martinez. He's still getting a win over Jose Aldo, even if it's the 2024 Aldo and not the 2016 version. But for sure, there might be a little bit of nerves there from Martinez, but I feel like now the confidence has come up, I feel like there's going to be a lot less nerves from him. Um, Knees and elbows on the break. I can see Martinez holding Aldo up against the fence and smothering him and trying to control him, trying to slow the fight down. He did it well against Said Nurmagomedov, and that was frustrating. That was draining for Nurmagomedov. He was landing good knees on the break. He was landing good elbows on the break. Again, things that Aldo's got to watch out for. And the difference with Martinez being relaxed and then being able to strike and go quickly is different. Like, Aldo always looks like he's ready to go. Martinez never looks like he's ready to go, and that can be just as difficult to deal with. What else? Yeah, see, if I'm Aldo coming into this one, I'm trying to win the moments in the fight. I'm not trying to win the full 5 minutes. If I try that, I'm gonna be going up against someone that's younger and fresher, and most likely is going to be able to outwork me if he is forced into a pace. Aldo needs to snipe, and he needs to constantly keep Martinez guessing. Short feints, changes ankle. Short feint, changes angle. Even threaten a takedown just to keep Martinez guessing. Aldo making sure the fight takes place on his terms will allow his technical ability to shine through. Slipping and counter punching when Martinez is trying to pressure. Not letting Martinez get away with free kicks to the body. Aldo needs to make sure that he's either countering them or he's nullifying them by either moving away or towards them. He needs to either smother that kick or just get out the way of it entirely. If Martinez starts to rack up that damage, not only is it going to potentially do damage to the forearm and the shoulder of Aldo, but it's also going to slow down that trigger cross, which I really think is going to be a key in this one. We saw him use it so well against Rob Font, and now he's fighting someone that's southpaw. It makes even more sense that he's going to gravitate towards that rear hand, that cross. It's a really fascinating fight. I would love to know more about Aldo's motivation to come back. Is it just because it's Brazil and he wants to be on the card? Is he been feeling really good in training against the young fighters in the gym? Like, what is the motivation for coming back? I do feel like the UFC have looked at Martinez and gone, well, this is a more manageable opponent for Aldo than other people, but at the same time, I think Martinez is going to continuously get better as well. I feel like this little win streak that he's on with the TKOs from low kicks is going to give him confidence that he can really hurt a lot of people in this division. And like I said, from the conversations I had with him when he first signed with the UFC, he enjoys the fight. He enjoys the violence aspect of it. So don't expect him to back down, even against Jose Aldo, if he starts getting caught with big shots. The winner in this one might be the one that figures out how to land effective low kicks to an opposite stance. And whether that's one of them switching stances so they're mirroring their opponent, like Brendan Loughnane is very good at. Like, Aldo might decide he's going to go southpaw so he can just work that lead leg. Martinez might switch and go orthodox so he can work the lead leg of Aldo. Like, they've both had such success with low kicks in their career that one of them has to make it available to them. And if Martinez can slow Aldo's footwork, that's going to make it easier to pick him off with other things as well. Because Aldo does move at speed. And when he does attack, you saw it against Moicano, we saw it against Rob Font. When he puts his foot on the gas, he looks like the Aldo of old. The difference is that burst will not last quite as long at this age. And once that burst has happened, he's going to need a little bit longer afterwards to kind of recover himself. I'm always excited to see Aldo fight. I always want fighters to be the best version of themselves, and I think we can all accept that Aldo he's past his peak now, Doesn't mean he can't still have really good fights, and if the UFC match these fights correctly, we can enjoy Aldo fights for a couple more years to come. This might be the right opponent for Aldo to really show people that, yes, there is a level to this division, and Aldo's the gatekeeper for it. If you get past Aldo, then you're definitely going to be heading towards a title shot. Or it might just be a case of Martinez showing everybody that the sport moves along. Time waits for no one, and it's Martinez's time. I'm excited for this one. Really excited. Good to see Aldo back. I hope he's in good health, and I hope he enjoys his return to the octagon. What else? Sorry it's been a bit slow on the channel. As you can imagine, we've been very busy training for Veronica's fight. Another shout out to Renzo Gracie Academy, to Master Renzo. Thank you so much for welcoming us. If you're in New York, if you're planning on making a trip to New York, check out the schedules. This is Union Square. They've got the HQ as well, with the Blue Basement, the legendary Blue Basement. They've got another location opening up very soon as well. There's loads going on. So if you need a good place to train, come over to New York, and you may very well see Veronica and I on the mats, because we're enjoying ourselves very much. All right. Aldo v Martinez this weekend. Enjoy these fights. Look out for the main event breakdown, and I'll see you next time.